Good evening. Welcome to the 7 p.m. Welcome to the Planning Commission meeting of October 29th. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roxanne had a question. The gentleman that's next to John, could you introduce yourself?
John, introduce yourself.
Oh, two John. Okay, John number two. Blue John and orange John.
John Dimitriou. I'm a principal planner with Frederick County.
Oh, okay. Great. Thank you. Thank you for coming. I appreciate that.
Glad to be here.
Okay, next we have approval of minutes. I didn't see the minutes.
There weren't any minutes,
Okay,
so
that's right. Okay.
we defer those.
Okay. Next, we have citizens' comments. These are for items that are not on the agenda. If you want to get up to the podium and then give your name and address. Okay, don't all run. 1, 2, 3. Is this the 5-second rule, maybe? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Done. Okay, Carroll County Planner. Hi.
Evening, everyone.
Evening.
Just a few items as to what's going on in the county. Even though this is on the other side of the county, I thought it'd be nice for everyone to know. Our Freedom Plan has been adopted by our Board of County Commissioners on October 10th. So the next steps, we'll be working on finalizing the water and sewer chapters, introduce the whole plan to the Planning Commission again on December 5th, and hopefully if things go, assuming things go according to plan, they will certify it by December 18th, and we will then brief it to our Board of County Commissioners again and request a public hearing on January 10th and January 31st. And assuming things go according to plan, the Board of County Commissioners will adopt the plan by February 14th, and we will send it out to MDE for the final approval by the end of February. And that's really it as far as our county.
Thank you. Does anyone have questions? No, thank you for coming. I really appreciate it.
Arco, just a comment. We had some representation from our planning commission at last week's MPCA annual conference, Maryland Planning Commissioners Association. And one of the things that peer exchange made us realize the value of partnering with each other. So many of our jurisdictions have similar planning challenges and planning needs. And a few years back, we began in a preliminary effort to periodically host a get-together of some representation from the municipal planning commissions in Carroll County. And we meant to get it started in Frederick, and we never got it off the ground. But there was a lot of interest in initiatives like that expressed by the attendees. And so that's something that I'd like to have some conversation, you know, at the county level about.
Yeah.
And perhaps even, you know, initiate a pilot or so where, you know, y'all could control the agenda, or you could ask for input on different topics and so forth.
Yeah, that would be good. I could probably talk to my supervisor about it and then let the Town of Airy staff know.
But I think it's the kind of initiative that would be supportive across the county.
You're right.
In terms of advancing good planning.
I agree. You're right.
Thank you, Arco. Okay, so we have Frederick County Planner, Tim Goodfellow, and Livable Frederick. Hi, Tim.
Yes, good evening, Planning Commission members. Tonight I brought two esteemed colleagues with me this evening. You know John Dimitriou, he introduced himself. The other colleague of mine is Dennis Superzinski. They'll be doing a deeper dive into Livable Frederick. There's a PowerPoint that John and Dennis will be providing to you. Several months ago, I gave an overview of Livable Frederick to the Planning Commission, just a really broad view. We talked about the vision statement that was created by our steering committee. It's a very detailed, elaborate vision statement that was kind of the overriding theme for the the master plan document. Then the plan includes an action framework, which is essentially the chapters or the themes in the document. And those are comprised of 4 areas: our community, our health, our economy, and our environment. And within those themes, there are basically goal statements like initiatives and supporting initiatives that describe those 4 concepts. Then there's a development framework that John and Dennis will talk about in more detail. That includes the thematic map. I think I might have distributed that a few months ago to you. Then the different scenarios, and these are just the scenarios that are in the plan, include business as usual, city center rises, meaning the city of Frederick being the hub of the employment and population base in our county, suburban placemaking, and multimodal places and corridors. So that's what I described in a little bit more detail a few months ago, but tonight we have the primary authors of our plan to give you some more details about livable Frederick.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And thank you, gentlemen, for coming.
Glad to be here. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So, like was mentioned, my name is John Dimitriou. I'm a principal planner with Frederick County. My colleague Dennis Superzinski is also principal planner. Between the 2 of us at a staff level, we're primarily responsible for the authorship of the plan. And Tim Goodfellow has played a significant role in helping develop content in the plan. And I'd just like to say thank you for the comments that we received from the Planning Commission during our initial 60-day public review period. We've spent a significant amount of time with our Frederick County Planning Commission reviewing each one of those comments, discussing them, and making revisions to the draft document as appropriate to release in the future a new revised draft document, which we have already forwarded to our Planning Commission. And after a process, hopefully a minimal process of review, we'll be able to re-release the plan, a revised draft plan, to the county for a second public review period. After which time the Planning Commission will vote on a recommended plan, and then the plan will be forwarded to the Frederick County Council for final approval. So one of the reasons why I think it might be good to sort of give another overview of this plan, even though perhaps many of you have kind of seen the plan and have read through it, is because it's a bit of a different plan. It's not, doesn't really correspond to a lot of the conventional methods of organizing a plan document. And, there are reasons for this. There's logic behind making these choices, and I think it would help sort of explain the plan a little bit better. We've kind of reviewed it very quickly. But I'm going to try to do it super fast so that we have plenty of time to discuss if there's any questions as we move forward. So, like I mentioned, it's a different type of plan for the county. In many ways, but also in many ways it's a continuation of planning that's already been done in the county. A lot of the processes are going to move forward very similarly, and in some ways it's actually a return to some of our planning roots. But one thing to make clear here is that this plan update is purely a policy plan update. It does not involve an update to our comprehensive plan map, which includes the land use plan designations, the highway plan, and the community facilities plan. That was adopted in 2012, and that will move forward with this plan adoption in its current form. So the plan is a little different for a number of reasons. It's a very vision-based document, much more so than anything we've done in the past. We use a very rigorous process to analyze responses and then subsequently test responses through a community workshop to develop a vision that's really embedded in the community responses. The participation process we used for this plan was much different. We actually generated 7 different policy work groups composed of 10 to 20 people from different functional areas of the community that all came together and actually produced a lot of the content that generated the first draft of this plan. And we also used a scenario planning process with our consultant Renaissance Planning, which employed a GIS-based modeling software application that helped us analyze the outcomes of different options for how we might grow in the future. So the plan is also kind of a revival of some of the past approaches to planning. For example, the use of concept diagrams was a very effective way that was used in the past of communicating ideas about how we want to grow. And since we didn't want this plan to kind of be mired in the details of looking at specific parcels and getting fixated on whether or not one parcel should shift from one land use to another, we really wanted to reevaluate our overarching strategy. And one tool that we wanted to employ was the use of these concept-based diagrams. So this is a very kind of famous concept diagram, and it's very similar in many ways to our original 1959 land use plan, which is not very parcel specific. It is geographically distributed, but it's also diagrammatic. And we sort of used an amalgam of both of these approaches in creating a new type of planning document, which is in addition to our comprehensive plan map, that we are referring to our thematic plan diagram. And the purpose of this is to really illustrate our growth management strategy as we move forward. And re-envisioning our growth management strategy as we move forward is really a large part of what this plan is all about. So this plan is also a continuation of what we've kind of done in the past. This sort of shows the region plan updating process that the county used, where a central core policy document was created, and we kind of cycle through all the regions in the county. And then in 2010, this process was decommissioned, and a soup to nuts update of the policy document and the comprehensive plan map was undertaken, and a new process for updating the plan was instituted, which was called the Communities and Corridors process, with the idea being that you would focus on smaller areas and really focus on physical planning. But as priorities shift and as leadership shifts, the priorities shift with that leadership. And our next planning effort was primarily focused on making revisions to the comprehensive plan map as it was originally revised in 2010. And now, so currently we are looking at this livable Frederick master plan process, which produces a new policy document and actually introduces a new type of mapping, which is the thematic plan map. And the idea here is to really root this plan in the mandate that's generated by both rational analysis through the scenario planning process, but also in a mandate that's generated by a very robust community involvement process. And this plan is also, similarly to the region plan update, is proposed to be updated incrementally, but in a different form, through these small area community plans, through corridor plans, potentially through larger area plans in the county, and even county-wide functional plans. So there are a number of different mechanisms that could be employed to update this plan, and clarity about how this will work is being developed in a separate document called an implementation program that we've been working on, that Dennis might talk about in a little bit, that will provide a lot of understanding about when, where, and why these types of plans will happen in the future. So the plan is really all about livability. It's a livable Frederick master plan, and it's a complex idea, and one of the ways that we kind of wrapped our heads around it is by really focusing a lot of time on developing our community vision. And we wanted to allow that vision to serve as the core of this plan. So in order to that, we took kind of a more of a systematic approach to the organization of the plan. And this is why the vision is really central to the document. We wanted to shift from this kind of more siloed approach where each chapter was kind of a functional theme like transportation or agriculture or housing. And we wanted to use the vision as the starting point so that everything kind of emerged from that central vision. And this is sort of reflected in this three-part structure of the document. So the three parts are our vision, there is the action framework portion of the document, and then the development framework portion of the document. So thinking about how this document is being reorganized through this process came about from an intent and a goal to draw everything from the vision. And it wasn't sort of the desire to just create something new and different. It was a desire to restructure it so that the vision became the central aspect of this document. So the first part of this is the common vision, which is a very detailed vision, and it really resulted from a direct translation of our survey. We got a little over 2,000 responses, but as a part of those responses, there were a number of open-ended questions where people could kind of just enter anything they wanted to about what they thought a better community would be. And the vision really became a translation of those open-ended responses. Those open-ended responses were this rich resource of information that we mined, we organized, we categorized, and organized by frequency to understand what the most important things that kept bubbling to the surface were. And after that analysis, the vision was created based on that survey. So it wasn't just a survey of like, oh, I agree or I disagree. I'd like to have no congestion in my roads. Well, I agree. You know, it wasn't that kind of vacuous, you know, these kind of meaningless, vacuous, you know, statements. It was people's, in their own words, saying what they wanted out of their community. And this very importantly resulted in these 4 themes that help structure the document as we move forward. And these 4 themes, as Tim mentioned, are our community, our health, our economy, and our environment. And economy, environment, and community are very traditional aspects of a plan, but this plan introduces something else that's a little bit newer as planning documents go, and this is a result of a lot of research that's supporting these links between planning and public health. And so we have a section that's purely dedicated to the health of the community. The next section is the action framework, and this was developed by the 7 different policy work groups I mentioned previously. And this is all kind of organized into this systematic step of high-level concepts that all feed into low-level actions. So you'll have aspirations at the vision level, you'll have categories of goals, you'll have goals which slowly become less and less aspirational, a little bit more specific. And then beneath that you have initiatives which become even more specific. And then finally, a lower level of supporting initiatives, which all tie to specific initiatives. So essentially what this hierarchy does, it allows you to look at any point in the hierarchy and look above to see what the point of it is, what the purpose of that specific initiative is, and look below to see what sort of the beginning steps of the implementation of that initiative would be. But it's important to understand that this action framework, because it's such a it covers such a broad spectrum of issues, that we never intended it to be purely a work plan for the county in and of itself. It was generated by the private sector, by the public sector, nonprofits, community members, planning staff, all had a lot of say in what was included in this. And as it gets implemented in the future, it will have to be implemented through partnership amongst all these different sectors of our community. And then finally, the development framework is really about focusing on the spatial aspects of planning. And traditionally, this focus has always been tied to growth planning that is connected to capacity issues. So we have a number of people that we're expecting, and we need more roads, we need more schools, we need more parks in order to accommodate those projected increases in population. But unfortunately, this is often done by necessity because there's a lot of time pressure involved, but it's often done without really analyzing what it is that the community wants to achieve, without sort of introspecting about what our aspirations are. So one of the main purposes of this development framework is to really connect those aspirations of the vision to the spatial patterns that we want as we grow into the future. But this kind of emphasis may result in what's called a fool's paradise, or something that's purely aspiration-based but not really based in reality. And in order to provide that component of rational, empirical analysis about what these potential options mean and whether or not they're realistic, this is where our scenario planning process came into the picture. So the scenario planning process involved the use of a model developed by our consultant, Renaissance Planning. And what it allowed us to do is analyze our projected growth, break our projected growth down by different job categories and different residential markets, and connect physical place type preferences of those different job categories and residential markets to the types of places that we actually have on the ground and what we could have on the ground. So there was this satisfaction equation that showed whether or not the demands of our growth were going to be met by the types of places that we are planning for. It connects the physical places that we have on the ground with the demand preferences of our growth. And that's totally different than anything we've ever done in the past. Before, we would have a bucket of growth, and through tacit knowledge, through professional experience, through political forces, that growth would be distributed, so sort of anonymously throughout the county, and then infrastructure would be provided for it. But what we're doing here is much more proactive. We're looking at what we want to grow, how we want to grow, and what the demands of our growth are, and then generating scenarios that satisfy both of those things. And what we found after doing an analysis about all that is that this one concept kept bubbling to the surface. And this concept is called multimodal accessibility. And there are two parts of this. The first is multimodal, which means many different ways of getting around. And the second is accessibility, which is the land use that supports the different types of transportation modes. For example, if you are only planning for vehicles, then low-density suburban sprawl is your only land use option that's going to function. But if you're planning for transit, for biking and walking, then mixed-use, higher-density communications is your only option for how things are going to function. So this whole transportation land use connection was very important, and it's embodied in this idea of multimodal accessibility. So the three scenarios we looked at, out of the four, three of them were focused on different variations of this idea of multimodal accessibility. And the first one looks at our business as usual. What happens if we don't make any changes to our future planning policies? So these are just some quick illustrations that show some of the potential impacts and extent of our projected growth on the county. The first one is business as usual if we don't make any changes to our policies. The second is city centers rise, which looks at focusing the largest share of our growth within Frederick City, which has the highest concentration of infrastructure and services in the county. The second is an idea called suburban placemaking, which looks at taking some of these older suburbs and finding opportunities to create pockets of density and pockets of walkability and mixed use within these older suburban communities. And the third one is called multimodal places and corridors, which really focuses on capitalizing these just endowments of investment that we have in the county in the form of infrastructure. We have I-270, we have I-70, we have CSX rail corridor. These are things that are there now that could potentially be leveraged to create much more opportunity for managing our growth, and could result in a growth pattern that is much more conservation-minded in terms of the rural land, and can concentrate growth on these existing infrastructure lines. So that's sort of the fourth scenario. And ultimately what we did with those four scenarios is we looked at all the different kinds of impacts in terms of walkability, in terms of the vehicle miles traveled, in terms of impact to air pollution, in terms of agricultural acres lost, and tried to find the best aspects of all four really of the different scenarios. And through a process of dialogue with staff, we generated what we called this thematic plan map, which is our attempt to conceptually represent some of the best aspects of all four of those scenarios. And what this really is a re-envisioning of our growth strategy in the county. The county has had a growth strategy called the community concept for the last several decades. And the community concept is a very good growth management strategy if you are not concerned about the idea that growth is distributed throughout the county without any kind of hierarchical or prioritization. But when you look at our resources, when you look at where we have growth pressure in the county, there is a need to think in more of a prioritization mindset about how we want to grow. And so this thematic plan map kind of expresses that. And there are four different sectors, growth sectors identified within that thematic plan map. There's what we're calling a primary growth sector, which looks primarily at the center city and the infrastructure corridors in the southern portion of the county. There is a secondary growth sector, which is basically a continuation of the community concept that we've had in place in the county in the past, as well as another layer that focuses on suburban retrofit. And it's important to say here that this distinction between primary and secondary is not necessarily one of rank or importance. It's kind of more about which one of these strategies best supports this multimodal accessibility strategy that is supported by the vision. And so there's no sort of pecking order related to the secondary and primary growth sectors. They're really more about identifying different aspects that would require different strategies. And then very quickly, we also have a green infrastructure sector, which looks at identifying like our green sensitive areas, creating a network of green infrastructure, and looking at sustainability issues and energy use issues over time. And this would result in its own standalone plan at some point in the future. And notably, there's a yellow area designated around Sugarloaf Mountain. So one part of this green infrastructure plan really deals with this area around Sugarloaf Mountain, which is a vital resource in terms of cultural history, visual aesthetics to the county, and it is really beginning to be in threat due to the fact that a lot of our growth pressure is happening from the southern portion of the county. And the ownership situation of the Sugarloaf Mountain is in flux at the moment. There's a transitional period for Sugarloaf Mountain. So it's a very important subset of this plan to really look at Sugarloaf Mountain and what needs to be done to allow development to occur there, but to do so in a manner that respects the natural and historic history of the area. And then finally, we have an agricultural infrastructure sector plan, which would also in the future be its own standalone plan. And this looks at things like rural agricultural hubs, priority preservation areas, a rural reserve in the county, viable transportation options, a strategic agricultural investment relative to changes in the market, and also identifies a special area along the southwestern border of the county called the Agricultural Rural Legacy Corridor, which is sort of this it's not really a regulatory designation, but it's meant to conceptually identify an area of the county where agricultural and resource conservation is of higher importance. And part of this idea came out of the Rural Legacy Program, which identified a swath of Frederick County connecting the agricultural lands around the Antietam battlefield in Washington County to the rural reserve area of Montgomery County. And so finally, you have all these different parts, the primary, the secondary, the ag, and the green infrastructure layers of this growth strategy. So this is basically a newly articulated growth strategy for how we want to move forward. And they all kind of combine together to form the thematic plan diagram. So with that, I hope I didn't go on too long. We do have a website where you can kind of find out more information about the plan. The latest revised draft has not yet been posted on this website, and it won't be until the Planning Commission provides approval for the plan to be released to the public. But you can find the previous draft here, as well as kind of updates about what is in store in terms of meetings and other types of activities related to the plan.
Thank you, Jody.
Thank you, that was great.
Thank you.
That was amazing.
Very in-depth.
John?
Yes.
Quick question. If we wanted to engage you in some discussion about the implications of this plan for Greater Mount Airy,
Great.
is that something that you and your team would respond to?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
One of the documents that we're working on now is this sort of, we're calling it our implementation program, where we would create this catalog of potential plans in the county, and then have this public process for how to prioritize those plans. So you might have this list of 100 different possible plans, pick 4 of them, and then prioritize those 4 and give rationales for priorities. And then that would be something that would be reviewed by the Planning Commission, approved by the County Council, create this really transparent process to define what our planning will be in the future. And part of it is to get as many community members involved so people can advocate for different plans that they deem to be necessary. And that priority list, even though it's initially created by staff, it's a public process, so we want to generate the information to make that priority list the most relevant. And, I think that's probably it.
Yeah, one item, on Dennis, one item to think about in terms of municipal planning is that this implementation idea, which we're putting forward as part of Livable Frederick to try to stop the pendulum swinging a little bit in Frederick County. It's been a huge problem in the county for years. Been under a lot of growth pressure, for the entirety of my lifetime. I was born in 1965. And it gets more intensive every year, I believe. One of the problems we've had is, depending on who's in office at that moment, you can very often see that thing swinging back and forth, and we're all paying the price for that, right? We have one group move in and do what they believe is the right thing, and the next group. One of the problems that we found to underlie that pendulum movement is that there isn't very often agreement on what we should be looking at any given time. It's a lot of like putting out fires, trying to pivot to address whatever issue is right in front of us at that moment. And so John and I really kind of thought through how we could get our elected officials through the county executive and through the county council and the planning commission to kind of work together and to agree, even if they disagree with the result or the character of a plan, at least to get them to agree that, you know what, in 2019, we're gonna look at this area, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do this third thing. So that at least there's some certainty in the planning process, which we believe will be useful on the private sector side, because that certainty is just so critical when you're looking at making decisions about large investments and land assets. And the other thing that we believe it'll help to do is getting that tacit agreement between our two branches of government and the planning commission. We hope to be able to start to have those conversations pretty early on before we get into the plan. One of the categories of plans that we need to deal with as the county is our municipal plans. So as places like Mount Airy or Fairmont or Brunswick go about updating their own master or comprehensive plans, the county wants to be able to come in and assist where we can. At the very least, kind of look at the areas immediately surrounding the community so that we're in sync and we don't end up inadvertently having things that are in conflict. Obviously makes it easier for you in terms of your municipal growth if we have our maps and our policies in sync. So we have built that, we baked this into our implementation so that when you decide that it's that time to redo your kind of long-range planning, that the county can come in and we can look at the outer ring, I guess, at the same time. We hope that that coordination will be useful to the municipalities and we will build that into our calendar and our schedules as needed. And in terms of kind of a request to you, I guess in the future, we read the paper, we have Tim coming out here as well, so we're pretty aware of what goes on in municipalities in terms of your planning efforts, and we'll just try to be as tuned in as we need to be, so that when you're ready to, if it means us sitting down in a room and having those discussions, we can do that. And hopefully that's useful to you.
Oh, yes, it is. Thank you. Any other questions?
One thing about the implementation program is that our target is to update it yearly. So, things can change based on, certain criteria.
Wow, that's impressive. Do you have any questions for the gentleman? Thank you, guys. You did a great job. Good job, Tim. You
Thank
knocked
you.
it out.
Thank
knocked
you
it out
for
of the
coming out. We
ballpark today.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You guys did great.
No, you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so next, if we don't have any questions, next we have the special exception request, Board of Zoning Appeals. It's MA-A 2018-02, Ms. Leslie Hull. And I will let John, you take it away.
Yep. So this is basically a special exception for a professional violin teaching facility have an existing home. I did visit the property and met the instructor. She seemed very nice. The property seemed well maintained. It seemed to be adequate parking off the street actually for accommodating her vehicle and potentially 2 additional vehicles with the overlapping of students coming in for lessons. I did receive multiple calls from adjoining property owners, and they're in favor of the people. They say they're very nice. they keep their area well-maintained, and that, they don't see any issues with it. There's some band that also practices on Marydale, I guess, once a week or something, which I'm sure brings a lot more cars in one area than this violin teacher does, possibly.
This is a corner lot.
It is a quarter lot, and it's
Yeah.
very peculiar because the mailbox is on
It's on
Violin Court,
Yeah.
and it's a Marydale address, which, whatever,
Marydale
I'm not
address.
sure about that. It's very
Flower
peculiar.
Avenue is the
I couldn't find it
other one.
initially,
That's why she's saying they'll enter through the back of the house.
which is actually
Yeah.
where the mailbox is,
Yeah.
correct. So it's a side entrance. But that's about it. And again, I had no negative input from any of the citizens.
Oh, that's great.
Yep.
That's
Looks like
really,
it's well covered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems to fit.
What- John, were you able to determine how many of these type of special exceptions we have now, or?
That we've granted, did not look into that. I can look into
Okay, I
that
just
for the next
wondered.
meeting if you'd
I
like.
I don't think it's a large number.
I don't think so.
not that I remember, but,
Not recently.
definitely not recently, that's for sure.
No.
Is the applicant here?
I do not see her. She
Okay.
asked me, if she actually had a lesson this evening, and she said she wouldn't be able to attend, that her husband might show up, but
Okay, well,
I didn't meet him, so I wouldn't be able to tell if he's here or not.
well, it
Are
doesn't
you
look like,
acting out in the audience there?
okay, well, we don't see him, but I mean, this is, do we have any questions for John? I mean, this is well done, and it's a great,
Yeah.
how
Very
you
thorough.
presented the report is
Yeah.
really nice, John.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone want to
Yeah,
make a
very sweet.
recommendation?
I'll move to, that we accept the staff recommendation for approval of the special exception request to establish a home occupation for the establishment of a violin studio located at 1006 Marydale Boulevard, Mount Airy.
Is there a second?
I have a question. Don't we have to just request that this goes to the Board of Appeals?
Make a
It's-
recommendation.
It's a
It's a
recommendation, so we don't,
recommendation
it says approval of the special exception, but we also need to approve that special exception to go to the Board of Appeals, correct? Or does it automatically say that when we do that motion?
It's really technically already before the Board of Appeals. It's been referred to you all for a recommendation.
Okay,
So you're basically
just checking,
giving-
just making sure.
Okay. I think Monica was trying to say that, too. Okay, so did we have a second for this?
My second.
Okay, sorry. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passed unanimously. Thank you. Can't wait to hear her students. Okay, so next we have on the site plan subdivision sign permit review, sign presentations. We have review of proposed Nottingham Trail Network, Nottingham Trail between the fields of Nottingham and woodlands of Nottingham. The action requires direction from the planning commission. John, want to take it away?
Yeah, so this was I guess, a planned connection through the two different subdivisions. We had Nottingham Trails and Nottingham Woodlands, the woodlands of Nottingham, excuse me. And this is basically the final stage in the two subdivision parcels. The proposal is, of course, to connect up to the access road that currently goes to our water treatment plant, and would actually create a walkability between both the communities and also down to accessing the rails to trails in the future. Ultimately, there's supposed to be a future connection down through there as well. Excuse me. There are proposed boardwalks in two of the locations to go over top of wetlands. The impact to the parcel should be limited. I mean, it has gotten MDE approval, as you can see through the letters of authorizations.
Took a while.
And it is the final phase of the two developments. ultimately. And the applicant actually is here, Rob Scranton. If you have any additional questions, he might be able to answer them.
Rob, do you want to add anything to this?
Rob Scranton, CBI Development. I'm happy to answer any questions. As John said, this has been around for a long time. The reason we're before you is the community, the HOA has some problems with it, and so we want just looking for guidance before we just kind of go in there. So two of the parcels in question where the trail will be located are either already deeded to the town or will be deeded to the town. And the third parcel is an HOA parcel.
Okay, what's the timing of the deeding, do you project?
Well, our deed for the lower part has been held up because of the trail. That's where the pond used to be, and we now have the dewatering device and new stream channel. So that area, and then the base of the rails to trails, the old road bed that wraps around Nottingham, I believe that's still part of that, that last piece that's yet to be dedicated to the town.
So, sorry if I missed it. You said other than the one that hasn't been deeded yet, the properties that the path would go on are already
John, do you have
deeded to the town?
can you put the map up on that was in the report? I can just point to it.
I'm sorry, I don't have it on.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not going on someone else's property?
No, it's not on private property. It's all HOA or town or our property, required to be deeded to the town. It's a long history here. I think everybody read the backstory on it. And, it was a long process even to get with MDE to get the approval to do this. So,
And your initial plan for Nottingham has this included in it, right?
yeah.
Okay.
The red line
Right.
is basically, Barney, correct me if I'm wrong, that's basically the original path that was proposed with the Fields of Nottingham when that was originally proposed and approved. Whole host of reasons that it was delayed, one of which was the dewatering of the pond, and where you see the boardwalk there is where it was just supposed to go across the dam that MDE made us remove.
So is 603 Longbow Road one of the parcels?
I don't know the
It's-
addresses.
I was out there Sunday and
Right.
walked it.
It's in here, I'm just saying, is that
Yeah.
one of the ones you own or the town owns? or-
The HOA.
If it's an address, we do not own it.
It's an address.
Okay, yeah, so you would
It's-
just own it.
It's a
It's
home,
one of these homes down here.
yeah.
Okay. It's just in this letter of authorization that's, I mentioned.
I was surprised by the similarity of the terrain of this and, say, Phase 1 of Rails to Trails now. I mean, from the top of the area on both sides, down to the bottom of obviously this water cut, is very similar to right over here in the trail. It's probably 25, 30 feet.
It ultimately rises to the road grade all the way up at Loxley.
And there's semi-mature trees and a fairly steep embankment on both sides. It's a lovely area. What's the opportunity that we could hear some of the opinion and some of the feedback from the HOA? Our role is equitable listening to all points of view.
Absolutely. I met with their HOA at their last board meeting. It was advertised to their membership, their agenda. We were on the agenda to discuss, and I think 3 people showed up. I don't know if anybody's here from the HOA
No,
tonight.
they're not. Oh.
I'm a member of it, I'm not on the board anymore.
Okay, because I don't remember seeing you that night.
I wasn't there.
And that was back in August, was their last, and it was not just a board meeting, it was the whole HOA was invited.
Right.
August is a tough month.
So Rick, do you have any comments about this?
I did have a question, and I'd
Sure.
like to address it
I'm
to
sorry.
Rob. And this is based on a little bit of ignorance, because I wasn't at Nottingham when it first started. Rick Blatchford of Nottingham. It was my understanding that this trail's been long awaited, and it was my original impression that the trail was supposed to connect the neighborhoods.
This is the only trail that was on the plan, other than the trail in the center of
Okay.
the woodlands.
That answers my question, because I was going to say it's going to Rails to Trails, which wasn't in existence or even thought about much.
Actually, it was thought about, that was the vision for the connection that the town's planning commission had. It was in the master plan when we developed the plans.
Oh, was it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, before my time. Thank you.
It was before my time, too. So that seems to be the biggest concern. I don't want to speak for the HOA, but that was the biggest concern they voiced was the connectivity to rails to trails, that they were more worried about people coming into the community rather than people going out and using it. But the reality of it is, if you ever walk back there, there's a hard-hitting trail. The kids are using it, the adults are using it. We walked it, we walked it 2 years, I think it was 2 years ago. You were there too, right? Barney and I and Larry Hushauer and Jason, yeah. Chip from our company. We walked several areas of the community and had other members of the community join us. And, you know, it's not exactly safe walking across those boulders where the boardwalk would.
Kinda cool.
The boardwalk will wrap around that.
It's cool.
Yeah. That's neat if you're looking for crayfish and snakes and things like that, but it's also good to have a broken ankle. So, anyway, again, I don't want to speak for the HOA, but that was the biggest concern that was voiced to us, was that connectivity to the rails to trails.
But you have met with them. You did meet with the HOA
Several occasions.
and discuss their concerns.
Were they aware that it was on our agenda tonight?
I believe, yes. I'm almost positive I let Brian Beata, their president, know. And
Okay.
it's been on here for what, 2 months, Monica? Since we originally requested it? Yeah, basically right after the HOA meeting, we requested this go on the agenda. Because we're looking for guidance.
Okay.
You know, we have an obligation under our PWA. You all are holding a lot of money on our bond, and this is the last component of that bond, is to finish this trail.
Right, so it's actually a requirement for you to finish.
Yeah, we can't.
I mean, sort of.
We've done
it's like
everything else
contractual.
correct.
Right.
Everything's done. The roads are dedicated. All the stormwater management. Everything's done except this.
Right, I mean, I don't see why we need to hear from
I don't either.
HOA people when this has been on since the
Exactly.
Yeah.
beginning,
They could
and,
have approached us.
They could have approached,
Right.
he's made it.
right, and it's
Yeah.
also not, this is really kind of a private, well, I guess it's town involved too, but it doesn't seem like it's really up to us to alter your contract.
Yeah, well, the ultimate vision or plan that they have, so.
We proposed alternatives when we met with the board originally, and they, I guess, talked about it amongst themselves and their other, community members, and, no resolution was really offered. I'm actually surprised they're not here tonight.
Well, you also,
I wish they were, because
I do
Right,
too.
right, yeah, it would make it a lot easier.
I can assure you, if you want to continue this, we're not going to be taking any trees down in the next 30 days. So I'm fine. Again, I don't want people getting, all uptight about it. I actually thought they'd be here tonight. I'm kind of surprised they're not, but.
Yes, sir.
I can say from hearing.
Sorry,
Can you mention,
People don't have a problem
he's
with
coming.
sir, can you give your address too, please?
Basically, from what I've been hearing.
Rick,
What's your address?
what's your address in Nottingham?
Please.
Oh, I did said that the first time.
No, you just said Nottingham.
He
Oh,
missed
address
it.
1308 Longbow, I think, is that right?
I don't know.
Thank you.
Check your electricity.
You
Most,
don't remember that.
the division seems to be pretty much 50-50 from my observation, and it's certainly not scientific. That some people want it, some people don't. Rob accurately described those who don't want it as that they're afraid of people from out of the neighborhood having better access to the neighborhood. And we've had some problems with people coming into the neighborhood, which are not related to that, but some are. Myself, I have no dog in this fight. I don't care, what's 50-50 for me. But the neighbor, just speaking for I'm not speaking for the neighborhood, but from what I'm hearing, it's pretty well evenly divided of the pros and the cons, who wants it and who don't. Okay?
Thank you. I don't see any point in holding this up any further. I mean,
No,
this,
I don't.
This is just, why not just, I don't know, direction being, go for it.
Go forth.
Yeah.
Go forth and pack.
Get this thing handled and done and packed up so you can,
Well, I mean, you
call it a
have
day.
approval from the state of Maryland. I mean,
Yeah,
that was,
what else
I
you
mean,
can do? You got MDE, that's closer to the God than we are.
John, in terms of our response, what form should it take? A formal motion, a recommendation?
I don't think it's necessary personally, because it's part of the design plan. So my only concern is the HOA parcel. Can they stop us from going across their parcel since it's not our parcel personally? I'm not sure.
Not to say they wouldn't try, but there is language in the HOA documents, I'm sure Tom can elaborate further, that allows or mandates that an HOA, you know, grant cooperation in any way for parcels, easements, or
Do
such.
you have any?
Do we want to have them continuing to own that parcel, I guess is my question. They have to give us a right of way.
Well, and that was discussed, and the fact that you're moving forward may prompt that discussion. One of the cons was that the HOA would now be responsible for part of the trail and the maintenance. So that might be a council discussion going forward. And now that if you basically tell us to go as, you know, as previously approved, then that conversation may very well have, and that signature or whatever might be necessary, you know, the access permit would probably be the only thing they'd have to sign.
Right.
That could prompt that conversation.
Again, I'm very green on this. What I'm hearing.
That's a good question.
That's the thing that's.
And it's very
out
relevant
of
because
me.
that was one of the cons that the people that were there talked about was who's going to take care of this if not just our people are using it.
Right. Okay.
And also policing, enforcement was also discussed.
Bob?
Yeah, I have a quick question. It seems to me that Bill Mill came and talked to the town council one evening within the last 6 months.
Oh, okay.
And was telling us he was not giving any more right-of-way to there's the roadbed that goes out to the water treatment plant, and we kind of been double using that as the road and the trail. And I don't remember exactly what was said, but it had something to do with, you know, no more right-of-ways and that kind of stuff.
I don't think this parcel actually
No, it is-
interjects. This is down on the our parcel.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be onto
Yeah.
Mr. Nill's parcel.
This is like 20 yards from the wastewater
Right.
treatment.
And it'll ultimately connect to Twin Arch, the townhouse community
Right.
and the commercial. So there's a path coming from that side.
That's right.
So even if it doesn't
Yeah,
go to
sure.
Watkins Park, between the parcels that the town controls, between Nottingham and Twin Arch, that accessibility between those communities would be established in a more permanent fashion with this connection.
Okay.
Those two trails are virtually across the road from one.
Okay, so we're all in agreement that go forth and get this thing done. Thank you. Thanks for your
Thank you,
explanation.
Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
Okay, next we have a special report, a proposed caboose pavilion design for our information.
Barney?
Sure. So this is brought to you for information purpose, really. We have this pavilion out to bid right now. And there was I think we brought a color rendering to you sometime back
At one
previously.
point. Yes, you did.
It's gonna have a similar appearance, except instead of having 6 posts, 3 on each side, it's just gonna have 4 posts right down the middle. Not down the middle, but on one side, and then it'll cantilever over top of the caboose. So it gives a similar appearance, just putting the posts down where we had them originally was complicated. And kinda, I think there was concerns amongst a lot of the contractors about trying to get those posts inserted in footers. And without having to remove some of the stone and,
Right.
you know, compromise how the caboose was sitting and stuff. So this makes it actually an easier installation, is the reason we redesigned it. And so we're hoping the price will come down. Because we were up at a 225,000 or something like that, which was a little steep for this pavilion.
Because I know, they got a grant, right? I mean, there's a grant.
There is a grant,
For
yep.
100,000 or something?
So I think we have like 50,000
Okay.
total, plus what the town has in budget.
Well, it looks nice, as far as just having I see the one, you know, on one side, having it go over the caboose.
Mhm.
What's the time frame on getting this built?
Assuming everything works out fine price-wise and we have, enough funds, it could start in the spring
Great.
is the idea.
'Cause I know it needs protection. Does anyone have any questions for Barney? Okay, well, Barney, thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Kinsey will get a hat. Okay, on unfinished business, I'm kind of confused as to why rules and procedures for discussion and approval, because it wasn't on the original, and we had decided that we were going to wait to town council, so I don't know why that's on there.
It should not be on there, and I apologize.
Okay.
That is my fault.
Okay, that's kind of like that. Okay, sign ordinance, temporary sign ordinance, section 112-11, discussion and approval. Tom, thank you so much for getting this out. I admit I did not have a chance to take a look at it. Sorry.
Yeah, I apologize for getting it out as late. I must tell you that this
Well,
was
you were a little busy, I know.
a task that I had underestimated, shall we say.
Not the first one.
So did we 6 years ago.
Yeah.
How many years? Yes.
So basically what this does, it responds to the case cited in here, Reed versus Town of Gilbert, which basically, and I'm oversimplifying, but basically dealt with the extent to which the city of Gilbert or the town of Gilbert could restrict the size of a church's sign versus other signs. And basically what the court said, although it was, there were 9 justices, there was something like 7 opinions. So everyone had their own view of it, but the long and the short of it was that the court said that in a signs ordinance, you could not make content-based distinctions in terms of size or other aspects as well. You had to be content neutral, basically. So if you look at our current signs ordinance, it makes a lot of content-based distinctions. It says political signs go here, they can only be this size, commercial signs can be bigger, and they can go here, etc. And indeed, in looking at the draft that was underway to revamp the current, or update the current ordinance, it too made a lot of distinctions that were content-based. Basically, this type of sign that says this is restricted by this, this size, and et cetera. So the aim here was to, on my part at least, as I saw it, was to convert that to allow it to make distinctions that I think would pass muster, would not be content-based, but at the same time might properly preserve what you all had in mind when you, at least in concept, began to revamp the signs ordinance. And when I say you all, I think I'm probably referring to several generations of the planning community. So,
Yes.
But here's kind of what I did with it. I think that this signs ordinance as now drafted makes distinctions not on content but on location. And also based on the type of sign you're talking about, not in terms of its content, but its design, a feather flag sign, or a human sign, etc. Not so much based on its content. Now, I've kind of broken it out by zoning districts. I did that because several of the opinions in the Reed case said that would be a perfectly acceptable means of distinguishing where you'd want different sizes of signs. So in addition, by way of example, I think in the prior draft and even in the current ordinance, let's say, just take by way of example, a subdivision sign that advertised, a new subdivision at its entrance. Current draft and the current ordinance would say at the entrances to subdivision, or it would say actually signs advertising new subdivisions can be this big, okay? So what I did is to change that to say that signs located at the entrance to subdivisions can be so big. Now, in theory, that sign could say anything as long as, you know, but I think there's gonna be some self-limitation. We're talking about signs on private property. We're talking about signs at the entrance to subdivision. What, you know, is an owner likely to put on a sign at the entrance to subdivision? So I think I use that as the best example of kind of how I went at this. I think it does need a lot of review over the next probably 30 days or so. I've kind of notated throughout kind of where I think that you all probably need to provide guidance so that we can fill in the blanks, so to speak, and sort of come out with a final product. At any rate, that's what I did. Hopefully it preserves at least y'all's intent in terms of limiting the size of signs by location now instead of by content.
This is essentially the outline and the structure that you recommended. If we wanted to really, you know, get it, clean it up and to do it so that it wouldn't be potentially a problem.
Right.
I noticed you also said, for example, in some cases like signage at the beginning of a neighborhood or development, there might be a possibility of us saying that it was a range of size in proportion to the parcel of the property.
Right.
That could be a consideration, as an example.
Right. I mean, there may be instances where you'd say, you know, they just have to be no bigger than this square footage, but there are other instances, and I think even our current code does this through an amendment probably 6-7 years ago. Some of the signs are geared toward how much, you know, you get a certain, you know, 1 square foot per, you know, linear frontage onto, you know, a main road or something like that. So, you know, you could restrict the sizes in that way as well, to give some proportionality.
So I guess what what we should do next is just take this, I mean, since we just got it, take it, review it, come back, come ready to answer any questions Tom has, with the goal of the next meeting, get this finalized and sent to town council.
Right. And I've noted in there too, where you'd want to address the issue of the feather flag. I know that was of great concern the last time we were together, or maybe 2 months ago. So right now, that type of sign, as you know, is only a temporary sign. So the question would be, would you want to upgrade or recommend that be upgraded to a permanent type of sign?
Okay.
Or something like
That's what I
that.
think it should be,
Right.
because if not, everybody,
We have somebody has a comment.
Monica,
yeah.
I just have a request to look at neon signage in the downtown zone. We have a nail salon that's just a couple doors down from us. We've had some complaints about, so.
oh, yeah.
I know there's several open signs in the downtown area, that's fine. It's just beyond that, the mayor requested that I just express his concerns about having neon type of signs or neon sign decorations within the windows of the downtown area. Not necessarily other commercial signs, just in the downtown.
Okay.
Monica, I would think in general, if there are any other issues in terms of, you know, enforcement that might have a bearing on this, that, you know, to share them with us.
Oh, sure, Dave and I can review that, and I'll pass those comments back
Okay.
to you, everybody in Tom.
Michael O'Brien, 806 Park Avenue. Have you all addressed an out for those situations that don't have an answer, like a variance, any of those kinds of things?
Thank you for bringing that up. The other thing that you'll see, well, there are a couple of additional sort of sections that I'm recommending to you all, although you got to fill in the blanks. One might appropriately be a variance. you know, in terms of size or dimension maybe. You know, if it's temporary sign, maybe you vest that in the zoning administrator. If it's permanent sign, vest it here. And you can do it however you all want, but I do think it'd probably be a good idea to set forth sort of what I call a variation, actually, a variation from these regulations. And of course, anytime you do that, I would recommend that you set forth sort of the factors that whoever's to weigh all this, so that it doesn't look arbitrary and capricious. It's actually based upon a weighing of factors, and we give guidance to future planning commissions or zoning administrators as to how to go about reviewing that. So I put that in as well, so for your consideration and input. There's one other thing that Dr. O'Brien's comment caused me. Let me just check this real quick. What we don't have now is a cross-reference to Chapter 92. Chapter 92 deals specifically with signs, both on town property or right-of-way and private property. And really, that chapter sets forth the mechanism by which you would remove non-compliant signs and provide the notices and things of that sort. That was recently revamped, I believe, or set to be revamped, perhaps, with respect to unauthorized signs on town property. And the other section I'd call your attention to just take a look at is I think that in evaluating signs in general, the design of signs and things of that sort, it may be a good idea to have in here, again, a set of factors that future planning commissions will be able to ground their determinations and review of signs on, instead of sort of it, so that you're not accused of having sort of an arbitrary and capricious, I like this sign, but not this one. Well, they're identical, you know. You want to be able to have consistency and something in the law that, you know, that sets forth the factors you actually review, so.
And I think this helps too.
Right.
To have an element like that in it.
Yeah, and you'll see that I make reference to your guidelines architecturally and things of that sort, so.
Okay.
In terms of the downtown area, I mean, we wouldn't be off base if we want to make some subtle differences for that particular zone.
I don't think so, and in fact, if you look at this draft, I have general provisions in here dealing with commercial districts in general, and then if you kind of go into that, I have a place marker where perhaps you all can consider any additional requirements or perhaps variance in the downtown area that you all can fill in and impose either more requirements or give more leeway, if that's, I'm not sure which way you'd want to go on that, but.
So that's what we're talking about, this, you have special provisions, that's the last couple of pages.
Yeah, there are special provisions that are picked up from the draft that you all had going, so I put them into here. There's one I may have to come back to you on, and that's window signs. I might have forgotten to add that one.
I thought I saw it.
It's
Or is it
It's,
in-
I
exception.
thought-
Do I have it in there?
Yep, under 10.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Window displays are in, yeah,
Yep.
exception.
Yeah, sorry, there you go. So anyway, that's it in a nutshell. I think it's probably best everybody to look at it and, you know, think about filling in the blanks or, you know, any
Yeah.
changes you want.
I think part of this was that we wanted to have a sign ordinance where staff could approve most of the signs that were coming in, you know, so that businesses didn't have to wait sometimes 60 days to
Yes.
talk to us about a sign if it came at the
Simplify.
wrong time of month.
Yeah, we want, but this was gonna be the muscle behind that, so
Yes.
staff wouldn't get, run over or trampled,
Right.
so.
So in many areas I have approved by the planning commission, and there I'm thinking that some of the permanent signs may be approved as a part of the development, site plan review, of course. But, if there's any subsection where you think it's best to have, to assign to the zoning administrator, just let me know and we can change that.
Okay.
Okay. Thank
Tom,
you.
thank
Aaron.
you.
Thank you for doing this. I know it was, well, you had a lot on your plate. I really-
We're all carrying around stacks of paper.
Yes.
We've been working so hard on this.
Yeah, I didn't bring my stack tonight, but can't wait to recycle it. Okay, so we all clear what we have to do for, okay. Thank you.
So our goal is to put it to bed.
Yes, please. Let's.
Yes, it has to be.
Yeah, so remember, this is going to be the present to the town, to the zoning administrator, to the staff. We'll get it in right before Christmas or the holidays. One thing I do notice is missing, and was that we were going to get an update, and I'm not sure what this not unfinished, but we were going to get an update about the conference that you, Leslie, and Roxanne attended. Do you want to jump in and put it in now? Talk about that?
I think it's probably the best time to do it since we're pretty close. But before we'll do that, but I want to commend John for taking the initiative to come to the conference. John was there both days, and I think it was really invaluable for us to have him there, because there were a lot of things that we kind of like, and I think he got a lot out of it, and I really appreciate that you took the time to do that. It was very important. And I'd also like to say that Tom and Bill did a presentation on ex parte communication, which was the best attended session there, and it was very well attended, and everyone was very appreciative. In learning, I learned that everybody is in the same situation that we are with all of that, and I was really glad to see that you were able to be the presenter. I thank you for that.
There was a great deal of comment and satisfaction and appreciation voiced, Tom, that case law was finally available to them, and I think we're going to get a motion and a request, if possible, to be able to make this available or as a reference, for planning commissions and for staff planners across the state. This entire conference was to a large extent modeled after the feedback that we got from the Output Project. MPCA asked MDP to conduct essentially a comprehensive survey of all of our 1,200 to 1,400 members across the state. And there were essential basic questions like, what kinds of things could MPCA help you with or do a better job with in terms of your role as a local planning commissioner or a member of a BZA? And in terms of training and planning topics, what are top of your list? And so we got those results last year, and this conference in particular was pretty much built around those priorities, okay? The other thing that we saw was the attendance at this conference is fairly modest. And so what's really needed is to come up with other ways, other mechanisms to deliver training, to deliver best planning processes and practices. And so that'll be something the board will be working on from here on.
I mean, I always like the idea of, a workshop that you can log into, a webinar, because those are so much convenient, at least for me.
We've got to be using the internet. It's got to be a 7x24 resource.
Right.
Although it is very important with to network and intermingle with the other commissioners, because you find a lot of things. I mean, there was one there, the town of Aberdeen, their reports go out 30 days before the meetings.
You're talking about the lady with 60 days.
Yeah, 60, it's 30 for her, and it's she gets those out there. I mean, we could never do
Everybody else
that.
thought that was ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
But just so the idea of you you see all different ranges, you know, and you fit, well, we're not such bad shape after all. But that was just like, that was that could never happen.
But a couple of the ideas were to possibly pilot and test periodic regional workshops as one example to get these.
Oh, that makes
these
sense.
get-together opportunities out closer, you know, to more of the jurisdictions, and trying to pull folks in. Wouldn't necessarily have to be during the day, maybe a late afternoon, early evening kind of thing. 7 by 24. We now have access on the MPC website to Planning Commissioner's Journal articles. And that's like the resource, you know, for planners, both professional and citizen planners. And it's cross-referenced by topic. It is a fabulous resource. There's 25 years of it. And these are seasoned veteran planners from across the U.S., you know, that have written these articles and are delivering recommendations and guidelines for us. So,
One thing you might think about, we have, I believe, 12 members of the Maryland Municipal League in Frederick County and 8 or 9 in Carroll County. And I would bet that if the letter goes to the right person, that they would be interested in participating in some of this stuff too.
well, they were
get it.
mentioned as a
Yeah,
partner.
as a partner, they get the stuff, they get the information.
Yeah.
I mean, Joe Griffith at Maryland Department of Planning is excellent. So he kind of coordinates this, so yeah, Maryland and Mako, I think, also gets the information.
We want to approach them to make presentations at MML meetings.
Yes.
We want to ask their help in, you know, raising the perceived value of the planning role and supporting, you know, more attendance at MPCA events so we can develop the capacity.
Carl, did you want to add anything? And if you do, you have to get up on the podium.
Not really an ad, I just.
Okay, well, if you say anything, you have to get on the podium still.
Carl Munder, 2002 Philbrook Lane. Thank you for the excellent report on, but what conference was it? No one ever mentioned the title,
Oh.
where it was, and when it was held.
It's the Maryland Planning Commissioners Conference,
MPCA,
MPCA.
Maryland Planning.
It was held in Gaithersburg, at the very cold Gaithersburg Hilton.
Whoa, if you were cold, I would have been a nice.
Well,
girl.
Holiday Inn.
Holiday Inn, I'm sorry. The heat was broken in one of the rooms we used, and it was just disaster.
Gaithersburg was celebrating the 35th?
30th year of
30th
Kentland.
anniversary of Kentland.
Yep.
Which really was the kickoff of mixed use,
Gotcha.
MXD in Maryland.
Okay,
That was the 35th annual.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
cool. Thanks.
Also, at this conference, they always elect officers. The president is a gentleman by the name of Danny Winborn. He's a planning commissioner in the city of Gaithersburg. The vice president is Bill Butts from Mount Airy. The treasurer is, the gentleman from Hagerstown. I forget what his name is. Doug Wright is the treasurer. And yours truly is the recording secretary. So we have 2 members on the executive board.
Congratulations.
Not supposed to. Just have somebody from every
Oh.
county, ideally. But there was.
No,
Frederick and
one's from Frederick and one's from Carroll.
Isn't that funny?
Although we both reside on the Carroll side.
Yeah, but that's an old antiquated, it was supposed to be, a member from every county was supposed to be on the board, but we're trying to revive this conference. It really needs to be, especially with everything that's happening in the planning world. We need more education, and that's one of the reasons why we're gonna.
Well, regional workshops to me sound, I mean, I'd have to take my vacation to go. And so, sorry, guys. And I'm the only, I just couldn't do that. So,
So we'll see if we can come up with some more convenient ways.
or even like, I like an afternoon going on to that'd be perfect. I could swing
I
that.
think we simply need to try some different things and see which combinations attract and most folks.
Yeah, I've even suggested like a Friday after. This is Thursday into, well, Thursday was basically the two classes. There was the planners commission training was very well attended. There was about 30 or 40 people there. And they also had the meetings training, so they do that. And then they had this, the tour and the panel about Kentlands. But then the meat of the stuff was on Friday, and I'm kind of like, well, why don't we do it like Friday into Saturday, and that way it wouldn't, you know.
Yeah, that would be.
We'll see.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for attending. Any more on that? Okay, so our next planning commission meeting is November 26th. I guess that's the Monday after Thanksgiving?
It is.
Okay, great, so we don't have to worry about people traveling or like that. Zoning administrator report, I don't see it, but maybe it's coming?
I don't have a report, I
Okay.
guess. I don't know if there's anything.
Typically, the permitting part of the department, which I've been filling for, does that, and I'm sorry, I don't have
Okay,
one yet.
okay, well, we'll surprise.
We will teach our new person,
Okay.
how to do them promptly.
Okay,
Not me.
Sound good?
Oh, the assistant.
Right,
Okay.
thanks,
Oh.
Melissa.
A quality assistant, is that what you said?
yes,
And I think your assistant was hired, yes?
yes. Yep, she'll be starting on the 13th.
Congratulations,
awesome.
great, more help, that's fantastic news. Okay, so one thing Monica had done, and we kind of like this idea, was just letting us know as a body what's coming up. So that's what the pending future project is.
Okay.
John, do you want to add anything to that? Or Monica, okay?
I forgot, actually. There are some people that are interested in rezoning a piece of property that is right across from Pizza Hut and, you know, on the other side of.
Ridgeville or whatever. Mm-hmm.
To build a Wawa
Wow.
gas station. And so they are just starting that process of doing their background investigation for, you know, to rezone the property and doing all their due diligence. And so they've hired Dave Bowersox in Westminster to represent them. And so he's in the process of working on that. So
Okay.
that's something that you might see after the first of the year.
Okay.
They're not quite ready to submit yet, and I think they were talking about trying to do something in December, but we normally don't have a December meeting, so we'll probably be pushing them to January or February.
That's the other side of the road from
Yeah,
Pizza.
well, actually, you know, right behind where the Lions Club
Yeah,
sign is,
yeah.
right
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
One interesting thing that they did do is they modeled the signal, which was hardwired to the signal in 27, right at that intersection, which is just a stop sign now. And it actually created a much better traffic flow than is going on currently. So it seems like it's a very short distance, but as long as it's hard connected to the signal on 27, it actually works better.
Wow.
So, that was interesting.
Anything else, John or Monica, you want to add to the pending future?
That property rezoned now.
No, except for, of course, Prospect Place will be coming in at some point. We're still working on negotiating those. The Burger King is just something they're trying to revamp their existing building. I have a plan, but I didn't have enough of it together to actually present it and send out to you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's kind of like what the McDonald's did. They're
Yeah.
Okay.
updating their facade.
Right, I have an elevation if you want to look at
I'm
it,
sorry.
what they're sort of proposing.
Yeah, we'll just wait till it's all
King
together.
needs a new home.
John, is there any progress on cold storage property, or do you foresee
Well,
that?
that's the Prospect Place.
That's Prospect.
like you say.
That's
That'll
Prospect
be,
Place, okay.
I would think we'd probably see
I was
something
thinking it was the
probably at
Burger
the beginning of the year. I don't know if we'll
That's
see something
Prospect
before.
Mill.
Prospect
I
Mill.
don't think we'll see it
versus-
in November.
Okay, okay.
Monica, do you know how is that property currently zoned? The one by
RE,
Pizza Hut?
It's residential.
Really?
residential
Wow.
existing.
You know, we've always talked about that whole area going commercial, it's just, it's a timing thing.
Yep.
You know, it wasn't like it was never gonna be commercial, because it just abuts the highway and the ramp interchange there, but, we'd always talked about it being commercial at some point, it's just a matter of when that was activated, so. But they're just what it's just a piece of it, it's only,
It's 5.5 acres, I think, and they're taking 2 3/4 or so.
Bob?
I was curious if anybody has any projected time that the downtown master plan is, do we have a schedule for what we're looking at it? I mean, I know we're trying to schedule the last steering committee meeting.
it's gonna be in November sometime, so
Right.
I'm guessing that they may wanna do a presentation in December, January, possibly to the council.
Okay.
I'm just guessing,
That's what they said.
We do have that last Airy Planning meeting in November. I would imagine at least 30 days to
Okay.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Carl, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I just got a question.
Okay, go back to the podium.
Yeah, I just need to write a note down for water and sewer about the Wawa. I just got a question on these pending future projects. Is any, when it says pending future, does that mean that it's like, if it's printed on here, it's coming up the next meeting, or just like a heads up, an
Yeah, it's more,
FYI?
yeah, it was more
type
like a heads up in case
Okay.
anyone ever asked us, so we'd be somewhat informed, but, you know, it's just, it's out there,
Okay.
but it's nothing specific.
deal? Okay, no specific, like, okay, just someone asked me about something.
That's not necessarily, well, one of them had,
Green Tree's been here, but,
Yeah.
Right.
it's not in a formal submission stage yet, but
Right.
I think probably soon, but
Okay,
some of those are a little bit out further.
okay.
We just thought it would be helpful for us as a body to kind of know what was out there. But
Good, just one.
And to that matter, I didn't put everything that's on there. I'm just
Yeah,
putting on the
please.
stuff that they don't know about, because, I mean, I have another page of stuff.
Yeah.
yeah, no, we
So,
don't.
just hitting the hot stuff
Go on,
that-
Macduff.
One of the
We know
things we
nothing
were reminded of at the MPCA conference is the importance of letting the public know what our agenda and our topics are going to be, to encourage them, you know, as much as possible to turn out. So we have the opportunity to hear from all different opinions and so forth, and so our process is equitable. So I would say any opportunity we have to post this on the town website, you know, any other mechanisms to make sure that the public is aware when we're gonna have these topics.
Well, and they could reach out to town staff too and find out like how,
Yeah.
you know, vague is it, or how, you know, but yes,
that's
I
where,
agree.
that's what was interesting. The one thing that I found was interesting. There are some commissions, jurisdictions that encourage the public, first off, to go to the staff, and then the staff would encourage them to speak to the developer if they have an issue. And the developer obviously listens, might not necessarily make the change, but listens to all of their objections, and it kind of helps to calm the, when we have a contentious issue, to calm that public hearing, so that they have been talking about it to the developer beforehand, so that it's not like, you know, all of a sudden the developer is listening to some things, and when he comes, he might have seen something that they really did have a good idea about, so that when they come to the public hearing, it might have already been taken care of. And it makes it a smoother process. I thought that was very
Actually,
interesting.
At least two of them require it. So
Yeah.
Anne Arundel County requires it, and I mean,
Frederick County.
Anne Arundel definitely does.
Yeah.
And so does City of Gaithersburg.
Yep.
And I guess Frederick does
Frederick
too.
County does too.
Yeah, so something to think about.
It is something to think about. I think it's,
That they have to go meet with the developer first, rather than taking up all of the staff time.
Wow.
And to that, I think I've heard some rumors saying about not having that happen, because then the developer might promise stuff that they can't give to the citizens. So to have it just a non-public or
right.
like attended by myself or whatever, to sort of act as a guidance, that you don't want to have
I see.
the contractor or developer meeting with the public privately, because they could potentially promise stuff that really isn't
Doable.
allowable.
Got it. Okay, another point. Okay, on that motion, that note, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Leslie,
I'll second.
second? Okay, it's seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Well, out of here at 8:30. Thank you all for attending.